The Slave Auction by Frances Ellen Watkins Harper. The sale began. Young girls were there, defenseless in their wretchedness, whose stifled sobs of deep despair revealed their anguish and distress. And mothers stood with streaming eyes and saw their dearest children sold. Unheeded rose their bitter cries, while tyrants bartered them for gold. And women, with her love and truth, for these in sable forms may dwell, gazed on the husband
Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rekakwadash, giving double honors to the apostles and elders of great millstone. Shalom to the hopefully elect. Shalom to all the brothers out here laboring in this truth with sincerity. Shalom to the few sisters that watch. Coming back with another lesson. Going into this article that I saw about Blake Griffin. It says Blake Griffin claims Donald Sterling encouraged friends to feel his abs in weird interaction. And Donald Sterling is that devil that owned the LA Clippers that was forced to sell the team because he made racist comments, and he was known for that. But it just came to a point where, they wanted him out. It says, my boss was touching me, the former NBA star joked. And Blake Griffin is an Israelite. If I'm not mistaken, his father is a Levite, so-called Haitian. But, he would be considered a speckled bird. And he's married to a so-called white woman. So his children, would continue to, the color, so to speak, of his family would continue to lighten over the years, depending who his children marry. So if his son married a so-called white woman, it probably would be no traces at all of any melanin, Salakia, in his skin, But the child would still be an Israelite based off his father, going back to Blake Griffin. But, getting into this article, which is something that was on YouTube also, it says Blake Griffin recalled multiple inappropriate incidents involving former Los Angeles Clipper owner Donald Sterling. It says in 2014, Sterling sold the team for $2 billion amid outrage over him spewing racist comments. But really, was that a loss? No, you sold the team for $2 billion. You still got $2 billion. That wasn't a loss. It says around the 32-minute mark of the video above, Griffin alleged that he was targeted by Sterling during improper encounters, like the businessman bringing his friends into the Clippers locker room when Griffin was undressed. This goes back. The point of this is that it goes back to slavery. It's like a slave auction. You had Jerry Jones, the Dallas Cowboys owner, making a comment about one of his players' penis size, man. So nothing has changed, and if you really dig deep, these same Edomites were probably plantation owners, wealthy people, plantation owners back in those days, man, slavery days. It's nothing new under the sun. As well as these athletes being valuable slaves, which they are. It's matter of fact, let's get a scripture, going into Blake Griffin, and his lineage, being a speckled bird. So we'll go to the book of Jeremiah chapter 12 and verse 9. It says, my heritage is unto me as a speckled bird. Israelites will come in all different colors, man. Every nation has Israelites, regardless of what they look like, regardless of their color, Whether you're talking about Chinese, Japanese, East Indians, whoever is Israelites scattered abroad, amongst those people. But it says the birds round about are against her. So, if these nations really could identify who were true Israelites, they'll be against those people. They'll probably ostracize them and kick them out, regardless of what they look like, even if they look like them. So, that was the point on that. But let's go back to this article. It says he would come in with his crew. I'd be like, oh, Salaki, it'd be like 10 to 12 people with him in the locker room, and we'd all have towels on, Griffin told Freeland. One time I'm in a towel, he comes over, grabs my arm, and he's got all his people in there. And he goes, let's hear it for our number one star, hip, hip. And he raised my arm, and all these people go, hooray. Griffin said the cheer lasted 3 times. Alleged that the behavior also happened at white parties after he was drafted. So they got quotations in the white. So I'm pretty sure, it was pretty much all white Edomites, unless somebody was working them. Says Sterling kept saying, like, my mom's white. His mom's white. So, like, speaking of Blake Griffin, Sterling kept saying, like, his mom's white is fine. Griffin claimed he would have people. He was like, feel his stomach, feel his abs, feel his arms. I was like 19 years old. So, it's pretty much a slave auction. And I looked up, let's see, I just typed in, how was the slave auction done? And, what do you have it, man? The transatlantic slave trade pops up, regardless of what people say, man. When the Bible is speaking of slavery and the Israelites going into slavery, or when it's speaking of slavery, and the Israelites going into slavery, it's a clear identifier who it's talking about. Over and over again, the Israelites went into captivity. And the last captivity that they went in was the transatlantic, brought here to the Babylon the Great and the Americas to serve hardcore bondage. Whether these people out here believe it or not. And ultimately, they're going to be destroyed by the Lord for the simple fact they don't believe. They want to constantly sell these devils. Salaki, not sell these devils. Well, that's going to happen, though. But they want to constantly save these devils after all they've done to us, man. So the AI overview says, the deplorable practice of slave auctions. It says slave auctions were the core element of the transatlantic and domestic slave trade, functioning as public spectacles where enslaved individuals were sold like commodities. These events were characterized by extreme dehumanization and violence, reflecting the brutal reality of slavery. It says, here's a glimpse into the process, and it goes into the process. Preparation for sale. Says enslaved people upon arrival from ships or from within the domestic slave trade were often confined in pens, like animals, like dog pens and stuff. Says their appearance was often manipulated to maximize their value, which could involve being washed and having their skin greased or covered with tar to give an impression of health. These devils are sick. Says in some particularly inhumane situations, they would be given rum to make their eyes appear brighter, or have wounds masked with palm oil or animal fat. says some were branded with hot irons to mark them as property. And the same thing is going to happen when that RFID microchip is implemented. It's not just going to be so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. It's going to be the whole population. The whole earth is going to be brought forth with this temptation. So, there's nothing new that this devil does, just happening all over again. Says inspection day, the enslaved individuals were brought to a raised platform or auction block where potential buyers could inspect them closely. The inspection involved poking, prodding, forcing open mouth to check teeth, examining limbs for musculature, and making them walk or bend to detect any perceived effects or lameness. Buyers might also interrogate them about their skills and health. It says this process was often publicly humiliating and stripped individuals of their dignity and privacy, sometimes involving standing partially clothed before onlookers. So, this devil is going to get it, man. Matter of fact, let's go to the scriptures and we'll come back to that. But we'll go to the book of Joel, chapter 3. Because they're going to pay, man. Regardless of what these people, so-called blacks, out here trying to save Esau and the rest of these nations, mainly Esau, you're going to be destroyed, man. You're going to be judged right along with this devil. So it says the nations will be judged. So regardless of what you think, the Lord is angry and he's going to repay these people for what they've done to his people. It says, for behold, in those days and in that time when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem. Because, regardless, man, hey, we about to be out of here, man. We see all the signs. We see this kingdom falling. The Lord is on his way back, to save the elect, whether these people believe it or not. It says, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, the valley of Yehoshaphat, to be judged is what's going to happen. It says, I will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel. And if you go into that word plead, it actually means to judge. So he's going to judge the nations for what they've done to his people. It says, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. And what greater scattering was it other than the transatlantic slave trade? You got to put this stuff together, man, but the Spirit has to be dealing with you to be able to understand and truly believe. It says, verse 3, and they have cast lots for my people and have given a boy for a harlot and sold a girl for wine that they might drink. It says, yeah, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon? These are African nations, man, because these were the people, that contributed to us being captured and sold. It says, and all the coast of Palestine, will ye render me a recompense? If ye recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense upon your head. So these devils got to pay. The rest of the nation got to pay. Why? Because they scattered the Lord's people, the Israelites. Verse 5, it says, because ye have taken my silver and my gold and have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things. The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians, the Edomites. It happened then. It happened in the transatlantic slave trade. That ye may remove them far from their border. Behold, I will raise them out of the place whither ye have sold them, and return your recompense upon your head. So the Lord is going to pay you back. It says, verse 8, and I will set your sons and your daughters into the hand of the children of Judah, and they shall sell them to the Sabians, to a people far off, for the Lord Yahweh has spoken it. So it's going down, man. We just patiently wait. So let's go back to the article. We read inspection day. bidding and sale. It says the auctioneer initiated the bidding, setting a starting price based on factors like the enslaved person's age, health, and perceived strength or skills. The same thing they do in these sports with these combines and these camps. It says buyers would then bid against each other with bids often escalating in increments. Said the enslaved individuals, particularly mothers and young children, often stood on the block together, adding another layer of despair to the scene. Separation and trauma. The highest bidder became the new owner, and the enslaved person was sold. The process frequently led to the brutal separation of families, and individuals could be sold to different buyers without any consideration for their relationship. So, mother, and it's spoken of in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 28. Your eyes will be longing for your kid, for your children, and it will be no might in your hand, roughly paraphrasing. That's one of the curses. Let's see, it says the trauma of these auctions, particularly the separations of loved ones, inflicted deep and lasting emotional scars and that continue to affect individuals and communities even after the emancipation. Even to this day, man, everything this devil has done everything you see now is a product of what this devil has done to us, man. From the destroying of the families, the drugs introduced, the prison system, the crack, the so-called hip hop, rap, whatever, is a clear reason why you see the women out here being whores, and you see the emergence of YNs. This is a clear reason why, man. Everything this devil has done is led to what's going on now. So I saw this, I guess it's a poem on YouTube. Who is this? Probably another scoffer, So these people professing their unbelief is at an all-time high. But, this is a poem, or, you know what? I might put this at the beginning of the video, Salakia. So with that being said, we want to constantly give our praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Shalom.